Jackie, 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 Jackie. What's up, y'all? It's your girl, Aston Shanae. Welcome back to The Juice. Y'all, I'm back with the Chronicles of Missingness featuring Jackie Christie and her daughter, Takari. Okay, I'm gonna let y'all know right now, I'm definitely gonna be skipping around, but not too much skipping. I just want to get to the juicy parts. Okay, so chapter 2, Legit Rich. With my father out of the picture, my mom tried hard to distance herself from that life. She was still dealing with my stepfather, but they were not officially together. I was told by a reliable source that my stepfather had approached and tried to get with my mother while she was with my dad. But she turned him down and told him his paper wasn't long enough. He backed away but stayed in the picture. My stepfather grew up in Seattle too, so he knew of my father and his dealings. Nonetheless, he was still intrigued with his then future wife. 3 months after getting picked by the Supersonics in the 1992 NBA draft, my mother was pregnant, presumably with my stepfather's baby. Child, Jackie didn't even know who her baby daddy was. My stepfather and mom still were not together after she became pregnant because my stepfather was well aware of my mother's reputation and past. Dog Jackie. She had bodies, so to speak, in basketball wives terms. My stepfather knew that my mom dealt with multiple guys at the same time, and it was even suspected that my sister was the baby of another baller. Everyone questioned the paternity of my sister, including my stepfather's own mother, who I affectionately came to know and love as Grandma Norma. Mama hated my mother from the get-go. She wanted nothing to do with her or me. She basically forbade my stepfather from getting with my mother and was the most vocal about doubts of paternity of my sister. Her sentiments at the time created a wedge so deep between her and my mother, it ultimately caused my stepfather to turn his back on his own mother. When my mother gave birth to my sister, she was living in an upscale townhouse in Kirkland. My stepfather was now living in LA because he'd been traded to the Lakers. Paternity of my sister had not been established at this point. My mom didn't hand over my sister to my grandmother like she did me, so it was odd to see my mother in parental mode. I was going on 4 years old when my sister was born, so I had already gotten attached to my grandmother. I didn't feel any kind of way about my mother taking care of my sister full time and not me. What I do know is that this was the start of the difference in lifestyles that we were afforded. My sister always had the best of everything. I, on the other hand, was and have always been an afterthought. Once paternity proved that the baby was my stepfather's, he moved my mother and my sister to LA. This was the transition phase of my mom's life from a street hustler to a now famous basketball wife. I don't know about famous now. When my mother moved to California, I stayed in Seattle with my grandmother. She didn't want to take me and I didn't want to go. She sent for us to come and visit quite a bit. My mother, my stepfather, and my sister lived in a high-rise apartment building in downtown LA. It was beautiful and the views were breathtaking. After 2 or 3 more visits, my mother decided it would be best if we moved to LA for good. Grandma, Aunt Bunny, her kids, Oz and Lexi, and I all moved to LA. She put us up in a high-rise apartment she was sharing with my stepfather. They moved to some undisclosed location. My mother has always been funny about her living situation. I'm not sure if it was paranoia from her days as a drug empress, but it was odd that her own mother and child didn't know where she lived or get invited there. Why my mother had us up and leave our life in Seattle never made any sense to me because she never really came around. She would drop my sister off with my grandmother occasionally, but that was it. We lived in that high-rise building for a couple of months before the 1994 Northridge earthquake. The quake registered 6.7 magnitude. It caused the collapse of several apartment buildings, 57 deaths, and shook buildings nearly 20 miles away in downtown LA where we were living. It was the first time I'd felt my mother's concern for anyone other than herself. She immediately found us a small house in some random LA neighborhood and we moved that same week. Even after we moved into the house, my mother still did not come around. She visited once or twice very briefly. We didn't stay there long because there was something peculiar with that house. It never felt like a home. It felt more like a stash house where Mommy Dearest stashed us away. Grandma was beyond ready to go back to Washington, and so was I. Aunt Bunny had her child's father there with us most of the time, and he was always angry and abusive toward my aunt. We were always in the midst of their turmoil. Around that same time, my grandmother had gotten word that my Uncle Marlon, her youngest son, had a heart attack while driving his car and was in a bad wreck. Uncle Marlon was hospitalized in critical condition, so my grandmother decided to move us back to Seattle. In the process of making arrangements to leave and packing up the house, my uncle died. His death completely devastated my grandmother. Of course, my mother didn't understand my grandmother's need to leave, so she objected to us leaving. My grandmother still had the willpower to say no to my mother during this time, so she rented a moving truck and loaded our stuff up. My Aunt Lisa ended up flying to LA to help my grandmother drive the truck. The three of us piled into it and drove back to Seattle while my Aunt Bunny flew back with her kids. Y'all remember, I'm skipping around some. So then she goes on to say, by this time my mom didn't come around often, but I longed for her visits because I got to see my sister. I missed one of the visits she made because the upstairs neighbor was pressing my hair and I guess it was taking too long. I remember looking out the window and seeing them getting into the car to leave, and it broke my heart. The love I have in my heart for them was something I thought did not exist because I never felt it before from my own mother. My grandmother loved me unconditionally with all her heart, but there is nothing like a mother's love. I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything with the lack of love from my mother until later on in life when I was able to understand our situation. After my grandmother called the exterminator who found the dead rat, don't forget I'm skipping around, y'all, and Crazy Randy was taken into custody, we went back to the duplex. My mother was back in LA, so life was back to normal as the way I knew it to be. Grandma and my aunties continued on doing what they had to do to make ends meet, while I continued on happy, content, and at peace in the comfort of my grandmother's care. My mother and stepfather bought their first home together in Federal Way, Washington. It was a modest 3-story home located in a cute little neighborhood on the hill. My stepfather was still playing for the Lakers, but in the process of being traded to New York, so they were not at the Federal Way house often. The first time I stepped foot in the house on the hill, my sister was turning 2 years old. I remember getting ready for her birthday party with all my cousins at grandma's house. Everyone in the family was excited to be leaving our run-down, roach-infested shack to go visit my mother and sister in their brand new house, if only for a few hours. When I walked into the house, I did not feel like it was home. It made me feel, for the first time in my life, an orphan. The house was beautiful. My jaw dropped when I walked into my sister's bedroom. It was pink everywhere. Everything was nicely decorated just for a little girl. I had never seen her being in a bedroom that pretty before. I was accustomed to my grandmother's overcrowded boudoir, cluttered with stuff from multiple residences we rented. The Kirkland townhouse planted the seed, but the house on the hill solidified that my sister and I definitely lived in two separate worlds. Seeing that beautiful home and noticing there was no place for me created a weird feeling within me that to this day I still cannot explain. My sister had a bunk bed in her room, and I assumed one of the beds was for me. But instead of me sleeping there, it's where all her stuffed animals were stored. It wasn't jealousy because I didn't know what that was back then. But if I had to match the situation with an emotion, it would probably be sadness. I wanted to belong there. I felt like I belonged there. But I had a small dilemma. I didn't want to leave my grandmother. If given the choice, I think I would have still chosen to stay with my grandma in our roach-infested, cramped apartment. In some ways, I think if my mother had a nicely decorated room for me, I may have felt differently, but she didn't. So I was glad to leave and go back home with my grandmother, who I knew loved me for sure. Having a space for me in her nice, big, beautiful home would have at least showed me that my mother cared and wanted me to be a part of her life. The fact that she had nothing special for me just reaffirmed what I felt all my life. My mother doesn't love me or want me, and my grandmother is my world. Child, let me clutch my pearls, my weave, and this book and gather myself. Now y'all already know by now I've been skipping ahead and reading through this book. And when I say this, I want y'all to believe me. Everything that went on was a shame and a scandal. A shame and a scandal. But y'all know I minds my business, but I just want to say this. No mother is perfect. But acting like one of your children don't exist when they literally live 5 or 10 minutes down the road from you is ridiculous. Now, I won't say anything more because y'all already know me. Y'all know I get emotional. But just know this. Jackie ought to be ashamed of herself. So anyway, y'all, like I said, I skipped around in the book because I'm trying to get to all the juicy parts. But if you want to go ahead and purchase your own copy of the book or buy your own ebook and download it to your iPhone, you can go to amazon.com/shop/for the love of juice. But anyway, child, I was scrolling through the comments, minding my business, being nosy, and somebody made the point, well, a few of y'all made the point, that this book really isn't too much about Takari's life, it's mostly about Jackie's. And I thought that was a very interesting point. Now, I'm not going to speak on it, but I want y'all to tell me down in the comments how y'all feel about that. Is Takari really trying to write about her life so that she can heal? Or is she really trying to write about Jackie's life so that she can get some money? Y'all tell me what y'all think, because I ain't touching this one with a 10-foot pole. Y'all know what I'm saying? Y'all know what I'm saying. Moving on. Well, I'm definitely gonna need you guys' opinions in this situation, because y'all know I don't get in other people's business like that. Well, we're about to be out of here, but before we go, we want you guys to leave us a like. And remember to subscribe to our channel for the juiciest gossip commentary around. And don't be shy. Leave us your opinions in the comments. Good, bad, or indifferent. I love them all. And with that being said, you guys, we are out of here.